every tree, every plant, every creature does have its own unique energy and personality and its own unique message for us. And so when we open ourselves up and we leave our logical thinking minds at home and we just work with the consciousness of these beings, the energy of them, we can learn so much.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to It's All Magic. I am your guide, your host, and your friend, Devin Hine. And here we'll be discussing how to make your life truly feel like magic. I believe that our very existence on Earth is nothing less than a miracle, and that we all have so much potential to learn, to grow, to experience, and to create during our short time here. It is both my passion and my pleasure to walk this path of life optimization by your side, where we'll discuss topics like passion, purpose, intuition, manifestation, physical well-being, and much, much more. I'm a yoga teacher, a meditation and breathwork facilitator, and a national board certified health and wellness coach. But more importantly, I am an eternal optimist, a lover of life, and a forever student. It is my hope that with each and every episode, you too will finally start to believe it really is all magic after all. Ready to dive in? Let's do it. Hi friends, quick disclaimer from future editing Devin. The audio quality for this episode is not quite as crisp, clear, and prime as it usually is. Long story short, as I was recording this episode, my microphone started making these weird buzzing and crackling sounds as I was recording, and I was entirely unaware until I sat down to edit this episode. So here we are using a lower quality backup audio that I had. However, it is buzz-free and crackle-free, so you are very welcome. I apologize for this lower quality audio. I tried to clean it up as much as possible, but we will be back next week with the crisp and clear microphone audio that we all know and love so much. Okay, my friends, enjoy the episode.
Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to another magical episode of It's All Magic. I don't know if you can hear in my voice, but I am slightly under the weather today. So today you get to experience a little bit of chill Devin, which you don't often get to experience. I'm still equally as excited for this episode as I am for any, but I'm trying to keep the energy a little bit more grounded, my voice a little bit more calm. My throat will scream at me otherwise, so I am trying to tend to myself properly, which I feel like is just a great note to start this on. Just remembering that sometimes you have to slow down, and if your body is screaming at you for some reason, let's say you're sick or you have an injury or whatever it may be, listen to it and ask it what it's trying to tell you. For me, yesterday, this sickness thing hit me out of the blue mid-afternoon. I started feeling super, super lethargic. I had had a lot of things to do in the morning, so I did something that I almost never do, which is that I skipped my morning workout and I tried doing it at noon before lunch. And I kid you not, as soon as I started, I felt like, oh my gosh, this is the hardest workout I've ever done in my life. And I could tell that I was getting sick because I don't know if this is a normal thing, but when I'm sick, the way that my cheeks get red is in a different formation or shape than my cheeks usually get red when I work out. And so I knew pretty instantaneously, oh no, something's happening. But I finished my kind of gentle lower impact workout, got showered. I noticed I was just moving so slowly, like I could not get myself to move as quickly or efficiently as I usually do. And when I sat down for lunch, rather than working on all of the to-dos I had laid out ahead of me, I put Netflix on, which I never do in the middle of a work day. When I say never, I mean I have literally never done that. And Cal came in and he was like, "Are you watching Chef's Table?" Because he recognized the theme song. And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am." And so, anyway, from there, I went downhill real fast. I started feeling really icky around lunchtime. And I said, "You know what? I literally cannot work. I'm starting to feel feverish. I mean, I had body chills. I was freezing. My throat was so sore that I like pretty much stopped talking the rest of the day, which whether you've listened to this for a while or not, or you just know me really well, I'm a talker. So that's really weird when I don't talk. And so at that point, Cal and I decided to watch The Fault in Our Stars in the middle of the afternoon, and it was amazing. He took care of me. He made me soup for dinner, had kept getting me tea with honey and lemon. So anyway, this is day 2, and I already feel much better than I did yesterday, but my throat's still there. Thank God. But anyway, I was just gonna say, I feel like the message so many times when we get sick is just slow the F down, woman or man. Like, can you just relax a little bit? Can you tend to yourself? Can you take care of yourself a little bit? And, when we're running around all the time or even just tending to task after task, we forget our own bodies. We forget the simplest truths about being human, which is that we need rest, we need food, we need water, and we need love. And so when we start to forget those basics, I feel like that's when our bodies almost rebel, but in order to teach us something positive. So whenever I get sick, even though there's that human side of my brain that says, "Oh, how inconvenient, I have so much to do," I instantly try to turn it around and I say, "What is this teaching me? Thank you for being here. I will tend to myself and I will rest." So anyway, that's apparently my little sicko intro, but that's not what today's episode is about. Today's episode is about trees, tree communication, and the wisdom and loving nature of Mother Nature. So there's a lot to get into. It's going to be a really fun episode, but of course, I want to start it off with a few deep breaths because I'm not feeling my best and my throat is a little, and by a little, I mean very sensitive right now. I don't want to do any sort of crazy breathing pattern. So I invite us just to take 3 deep breaths. When we take these deep breaths, I invite us to breathe in through the nose and then sigh it out of the mouth, sigh it out of the nose, whatever you want. I know I personally am yearning for a bit of that sigh kind of exhale, but take whatever you need today. Especially if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I completely trust that you know your body better than anyone knows your body. I could not assign you the proper breathing pattern better than you could assign it to yourself. So take what you need today. So if you'd like to close your eyes, you can, and if not, that is perfectly acceptable as well. So getting comfortable if you're choosing that option. It just actually feels really nice to sit here for a second with my eyes closed. Maybe you want to roll your shoulders up to your ears and then let them melt down your back. Maybe you want to roll out your neck for a second. Oh, feels good for the lymph nodes. And then when you're ready, go ahead and empty out from your previous breath here. And then inhale through the nose. Open mouth, sigh it out. Inhale again. Open mouth, sigh it out. Last one, deepest yet. Try to extend the exhale this time. Inhale. And slowly sigh it out. Beautiful. Yeah, you can flutter open your eyelids if you got the chance to close them. Welcome back. Welcome back, me. Welcome back, you. We are now in a different place energetically than we were 5 seconds ago, which is so beautiful. So let's get into this tree conversation. There's a very specific reason why this is the topic of today's episode. I recently had a very cool experience with trees. And I'll also caveat this story beginning by saying if right now you're hearing me talk about tree communication trees and you're like, what is this woman talking about? Just bear with me. I will explain through the story, but also remember that Mother Nature is so wise. A few weeks ago, Cal and I were watching this really cool docu-series about evolution, and it literally didn't get to mankind until the last episode of the entire series. So mainly it was through dinosaurs, just prehistoric ages. It went through all of the cycles of Mother Earth. And the truth of the matter is that she can sustain anything. She can get through the toughest periods, whether her surface is made of molten lava and volcanoes or pure ice and glaciers. She maintains herself. And it's really those of us that call her home that are a little bit more fragile and feeble. So, Mother Earth is so ancient, so wise, so brilliant, and she can handle pretty much anything. So, let that kind of sit in the back of your mind as I tell this story. So, the story started 2 nights ago. I was sleeping, as one hopes to do in the middle of the night, and I was told in a dream very clearly that when I went to bed that night, I had a headache, which I did indeed have. And I was told that the headache is because I had spent way too much time on screens that day. And I had spent a lot of time on screens late into the night, which I try very hard not to do. But that particular night, I was just getting a lot done, as was Cal. So I was on screens almost right up until bedtime. So I was told that that was the reason why I had this headache, and I almost never have headaches, so it was a weird phenomenon for me. And I was requested to go visit this little grove of redwoods that Cal often likes to go to in the morning. I was told if you go to the redwoods the next morning, spend some time in the redwoods, and they will take away your headache. And so I woke up and I said to Cal, I was given a message in the middle of the night. In my dream, it was communicated to me that I have to go visit your trees. We call them Cal's trees because he tries to visit them every single day. They're very grounding for him. And it's this little alcove, this little redwood grove behind this building, like a 5-minute walk from our apartment, and almost no one knows about it. And so he often goes, and I've never gone on my own before. I visited once with Cal, but for whatever reason, it was communicated to me that it is very important that you go to these trees. So the next morning, woke up, I told Cal that, and the first thing I did, I went for a walk directly to the trees. I left my phone at home. I said clearly that was a message. I'm going to decrease my screen time today, especially when I'm with the trees. And I walked over to the trees. And the second I walked down the stairs and rounded the corner of this building where the trees sit, I mean, it almost made me emotional because it was just the simple reminder that no matter how chaotic life is, no matter how anxious you are, no matter how many headaches you have, how sick you feel, how low energy, how many tasks you have on your to-do list, you round the corner and there are the trees just sitting there as they were 100 years from now and as they hopefully will be 100 more years from now. They just have this grounding, stable nature where they're so rooted. And that feels very different from mankind. We are changing every single day. We are taking in new information and then regurgitating it out to others. We just move and think and talk so fast. Things change so fast. And then you see a tree and you remember that there are certain things in life and in this world that are just stable. Like it was so wholesome just seeing these trees. And so I walked over to the trees. There are these 3 redwood trees in this little grove. And I decided I wanted to communicate with them. And I feel that we can communicate with most living things. I think that we can communicate with plants. I think that we can communicate with animals. And the truth of the matter is that for all of these, even if you're communicating with dead people, I think the truth is that we can communicate with all of these entities through energy. I mean, for the most part, that's how we humans communicate with one another as well. We can read the energy of someone's body language, or if you enter into a room and there's a couple people in there that have just had an argument, even if they didn't say anything, you could enter into that room and sense that something's wrong. Like, oh gosh, what did I walk into? So we human beings can sense energy incredibly well. And I think also the more we attune ourselves to that dimension of energy, the better we get at interpreting it and then translating it and communicating back through energy. So anyway, when I walked up to these trees, I intuitively felt called to the second biggest tree. So there's the biggest tree, the second biggest tree, and the littlest tree. And I will explain through this story how I ended up kind of archetyping them as I got to quote unquote know them. But for now, just know that I was intuitively called to the second biggest tree. And when I walked up to this tree, I'm going to start calling her because she was clearly a her to me. I decided I wanted to give her a hug, but as I would with almost any other being, I wanted to ask for her permission. I mean, imagine for a second that you are a tree and random people are touching you all the time. And a lot of mankind is cutting down your brothers and sisters or burning you or turning you into paper. There might be a little hostility, I would guess. So I think it is the kind and respectful thing to ask for permission. It's almost like with pregnant women, everyone assumes that they can just walk up and touch the pregnant woman's belly, but I feel like a lot of people would rather you ask their permission. So that's what I decided to do with the tree. And to ask the permission of a tree, if you'd like to hug it or touch it or hold it in some way, is you just have to sense the energy. So what I do is that I rub the palms of my hands together really, really fast just to warm them up, kind of get my own energy into my hands. And then I open my palms up to the tree as I'm standing maybe a foot or so away. And I merely ask, can I hug you? And I close my eyes and I feel. And if you feel that you are being pulled into the tree, literally if your body's falling forward towards the tree, it's a yes. You can hug the tree, you can touch the tree, you can kiss the tree. And if it's a no, your body will start to tilt backwards. By the way, you can use this with food as well, with medicine. I believe it's called energy testing, where you can hold, let's say, a medicine or a particular food in your hand and just close your eyes and ask, is this good for me? Is this what my body wants? Your body will either lean forward to tell you yes, or it will lean back to tell you no. This has been used for, like millennia. This is an age-old practice, and I learned about using it with trees many years ago as well. So I opened my palms and I asked her, may I hug you? And she said yes. And so I opened my arms and I put my arms around her, gave her a big old hug, turned my head to the side so my cheek was just on that squishy, foamy redwood bark. If you've never seen a redwood, they're so magical, but the bark is really funny because it's just this really foamy, spongy, soft thing. So I was hugging her, and I kid you not, within 30 seconds of hugging this tree, I started bawling. And it's so weird. Like I feel like I talk about crying on this podcast a lot, but I actually don't cry frequently at all. Like I go about life as anyone would. I feel my emotions. I notice that they're there, but I'm not crying all the time. It might seem like I am. And so the fact that I was guided to these trees, within 30 seconds, there was clearly a release of something that I had to get off my chest. It was just so divinely designed. So I'm sitting there crying and I start talking to her, essentially praying to her, to Mother Nature, to God, to the universe, to any and all beings and entities that are listening at any given time. And I first started simply and I told her the story of why I was there. I said I was guided here in a dream. I was told to come here and that you and your brothers and sisters would help take away my headache. I said, can you please take away my headache? And in general, can you just help to heal me and guide me and support me on this podcasting journey I'm on this moving journey where Cal and I are about to move out of California, which is my home state, and embark on a new adventure in Thailand. Can you please energetically stay with me and support me on these journeys? And so I'm just praying as I'm hugging her and crying. And I'm also just thanking her for being here for humanity, for the animals, for being so wise and rooted and grounded, for reminding me of the stability in life, even when nothing else seems stable. I mean, it's really such a gift to have trees around us that remind us of that fact. So I have this amazing moment with her, and the reason I call her a her is because in my personal experience, when you spend time with a tree or particular plant, you can really get to know its energy, its personality, almost its gender. And I very, very quickly had the feeling that I was being hugged by a mother. She had this warm, loving, nurturing, maternal energy, and she just completely engulfed me. It was the kind of maternal hug when you're a kid and you're about to cry, and then let's say your mom hugs you and you just break down. That's exactly what it felt like. It was clearly maternal to me. Like, I really feel like I'm not coloring outside the lines or taking a guess here. It was so crystal clear to me. So I spent probably 5 or 10 minutes with her, hugging her, crying, praying, and then I, thanked her for letting me be with her, thanked her for the support and the guidance, and I gave her a little kiss on her bark, and then I stepped away slowly, and then I intuitively felt called to the largest redwood. So I walked over, I did the same thing where I rubbed my hands together, opened my palms, and I just said, "May I hug you?" And was it was so funny because I don't know if he was almost jealous that I had spent time with one of the other trees, but this was like a clear tug forward, like pulling me in, like, come here, woman. And so I ended up hugging him and just continuing to cry and to pray. And this one had a clearly paternal energy. And I wasn't engulfed in the same way that I was by the first tree, where it's just that big motherly hug kind of energy. This one was more of a like a light hug, kind of patting my back, like, there, you'll be okay. Where there's almost that slight distance, just something about it felt different. There was kind of that maternal energy versus that paternal energy, and it was still very loving, but it was different. And so I spent my time with him, and it was, just beautiful. And then when I was done hugging him, I thanked him, of course, and went over to the smallest redwood. And I did the same process with this one. And this one's energy, it very clearly felt like the teenage child between these two trees. It felt like this was a family. I had first hugged the mother and then the father, and this was the teenager. And even when I asked if I could hug this tree, I felt like this tree kind of gave me one of those side hugs, like, come on, almost like I'm a buddy, a sibling, a cousin, a pal. And it was just a really kind of funny hug. And so I spent some time with this tree, thanked him or her. I wasn't so sure about the gender on this one, but I was very clear about the age. And then I just went into the middle of the circle of trees. There was a clear space, and I continued to cry and I crouched down and put my hands in the dirt and I started speaking to California. And the reason I decided to speak to California is because a few days ago, Cal and I had a really wonderful experience talking to this yin yoga teacher that I've talked about on the podcast before. If you have heard of, if you've, I guess, listened to or watched my episode where I talk about how to have more synchronicities in your life, I share the story of Cal and I going to this yin yoga class on a Sunday and then staying for 3 extra hours talking to the teacher, who turns out he's clairvoyant, which is a form of psychic. And we essentially got this free clairvoyant reading for 3 hours. And so, anyway, Cal and I went back to his class this last Sunday. And we ended up talking to him after the class. And in this conversation, he mentioned that he had recently been told in a reading that it's really important to speak to the energy of the land that you live on. And for him, something we were kind of connecting over, he said that he totally has that wanderlust spirit. It's like he lands somewhere and then he gets a little restless, starts dreaming of the place over the fence, that the grass is always greener. And he was actually told in this reading, California's really hurt. She's feeling like she's not enough for you. I think you need to have a conversation with her. So whether that sounds crazy or not to you, just keep in mind everything I'm sharing today, these are just practices and tools that make me feel so much more connected to earth, to life, to myself, to my angels, my ancestors, God, the universe. I think these rituals and practices are so beautiful. No harm is done through them. And it really does just create this tether of unconditional love between yourself and all of these entities, energies that you're trying to communicate and commune with. So when I was in this circle of redwoods, I decided I really need to talk to California too, because I have a very complicated relationship with her. I have always loved California. I've grown up here since I was 7 years old, and then I left for college, came back after college, and she's raised me. In many ways, she's been like another mother to me. And I appreciate the energy that she holds. She has this free spirit attitude of welcoming all the progressives of the world and being open to ideas like the ones that I share on this episode. But she also has kind of this cutting edge side of the up and coming technology, Silicon Valley, and hard work and all of that. So she's just very dynamic, as is her land. I mean, in California, you can be in the desert and then you can be in the beach and then you can be skiing on a mountain and then you can be immersed in a redwood forest. I mean, California is so freaking beautiful. If you haven't seen her, I recommend you do, because it's just as good as it is in the movies, if not better. However, with all of that positivity, there's also a side of me that feels like in some ways I don't fit here, at least in the Silicon Valley. The Silicon Valley, it's very corporate and tech and grind and hustle and masculine energy. And here I am speaking to a camera about tree communication and Reiki and unconditional love and the feminine energy of learning to tune into your body and ask her what she needs and follow your heart, follow your purpose and your passion. And so there's a side of me that doesn't fit here. And on top of that, as you probably would have heard in a past episode, I can't remember if I talked about this, in a recent astrocartography reading Cal and I had, which is a niche within astrology where you're essentially able to look at the particular energies of the globe based on your particular birth chart. I was told that California actually has the hardest planetary line that exists for me. So keep in mind, that's not for all people, but based on my chart, I am smack dab in the middle of a Saturn line. And Saturn lines are very challenging. It's where everything takes a little bit more time, persistence, grind, self discipline. It feels like it takes forever to get anything done. Whereas when you go to a different planetary line, sometimes things get easy. You feel abundant. You feel like you're meeting people at the right time in the right place, and things just shine. And so I have been on the Saturn line for most of my life, and I have felt the effects in businesses I have tried to launch, careers I have tried to explore. And so all of that is to say, I have a very complicated relationship with California. And so I put my hands in the earth, and I was still crying at this point, and I just started talking to her. And I thanked her for raising me, and I thanked her for all of the opportunities that she gives to millions of people, for her beauty, for her wisdom, for her progressive nature, for being the place that misfits have always been able to flock to, whether they identified as queer or were interested in psychedelic medicines. People from all walks of life have always been welcome here. So I thanked her for all of that. And then I just explained to her why I have to go. And that, yes, I do love her and I will always love her, and maybe we'll be back, but right now we have to go. And it felt so cathartic to talk to California. In fact, I told Cal the other day that I really want to have kind of a closing ceremony with California right before we leave, where maybe we go for a hike in the rain, which Cal and I did recently. It was amazing. There was no one else on the trail. I highly recommend it. And just hug trees and put our hands in the earth and speak to her. Thank her for all that she's done. So anyway, I also invite you listening to do the same with wherever you live. Speak to the energy of your state or your country or your city. Really get to know him or her, and also introduce yourself. Maybe tell them what you're looking for in that particular place. Tell them what you're yearning for in this phase of your life. So I had this little conversation with California, and then the morning felt complete. I'd had this really cathartic cry. I had prayed a lot. I had asked for guidance. I had said thank you a million times and felt an immense amount of gratitude. And then I said goodbye to the trees. And so I gave them each, I would kiss my palm and just gently place it on each of the trees as a goodbye. And then I walked back home. And my headache was gone at this point, by the way, I have to say. So that was just such a beautiful experience. And I wanted to share really quickly, a few years ago, the first experience that I really had with kind of tree communication, plant communication, was a forest bathing experience. So I believe I've mentioned on the podcast that I have this really amazing group of friends that I met in 2019 at a wellness retreat in Bali, Indonesia, all the way across the world. And every single year, the five of us still meet somewhere in the world, whether it's at one of our homes in the United States, or shortly we are planning on hopefully going to Qatar in the Middle East where one of the women lives. So anyway, it's a wonderful group. And the first time we ever got together, we were in Minnesota at one of the ladies' homes. And it was such a beautiful experience, not only being together, but she lives on just this amazing plot of land. She has, I believe it's a lake in the backyard, and all this open grassy area with trees. It's just incredible. And one of the ladies said, "Hey, I would love to lead us through a forest bathing experience." If you're unfamiliar with forest bathing, don't worry. I don't know too much about it, I'll be honest, but I know that it's this ancient Japanese technique of more or less spending some meditative time in nature. So no technology, you're often not talking, and you're kind of just communing with nature. You are reading the energy around you. You're focused on your senses. I remember we had to smell things, we had to potentially taste things, feel things. How does the grass feel against your skin? And when you focus on those five senses, just in general, it helps to ground you in the here and the now. So if ever you're having an anxious moment, for example, I invite you to just do the five senses activity where you have to look around, think of one thing that you see, then ask yourself, what do you smell right now? What do you taste? What can you feel? And what can you hear? And when you anchor yourself to those five senses, you really anchor yourself back into your human body where you get to be grounded and rooted and safe. So that's what we got to do in nature in this forest bathing experience. And I remember we were told, get out of your head during this experience and just feel. Just forget your name and go out there with an open mind and an open heart. And so I believe we were given maybe 30 minutes or an hour, and we all had to just walk around and spend time in nature very slowly. I mean, walking in the grass slowly, noticing how the grass feels between your toes, hugging trees, noticing, just your observations. And that was the first time that I really felt trees having individual personalities and energy. I remember two trees that I hugged in particular. One of them had clear maternal energy, just like I told you about with these redwoods. And it did feel like I was just being engulfed in this giant hug. And then a different tree that I was hugging, it felt like he was not hugging me back, but he was like holding my hand. And I suddenly was transported back to being a kid holding my dad's hand about to cross the street. That's how it felt. And so I noticed that every tree, every plant, every creature does have its own unique energy and personality and its own unique message for us. And so when we open ourselves up and we leave our logical thinking minds at home and we just work with the consciousness of these beings, the energy of them, we can learn so much. And so I'm just so grateful that I was guided to these redwoods in my dream. And I'll also say, I'll probably share more about this in future podcast episodes, but I've been receiving a weird number of messages in my dreams lately. Like, I'll just say really quickly, in my dream last night, so I have been studying astrology for a while, very in depth. And so I have a lot of astrology dreams, constantly reading. I'm taking courses. I'm doing a certification. I have study buddies I meet with. And in the middle of my dream, I was told the name of a girl that I danced with. I was a competitive dancer my whole life, and I was given the specific name of this girl that I danced with. And for whatever reason, I was told she's an Aquarius. And I thought, what a weird message to receive in a dream, but I'm excited to fact check that. I woke up in the morning, I remembered this message, I looked her up on Facebook, and she is indeed an Aquarius. So start to listen to your dreams, my friends. That's so often when we get that intuitive guidance or messages from our spirit guides, our ancestors, anyone you believe in that might be looking out for you. They can directly communicate with us during our dreams. It's often been believed that our souls actually leave our physical bodies when we sleep. That's how things like astral projection, if you've heard of that, exist, because our soul is actually not here. Our soul is going to other dimensions and realms. So no matter how you want to interpret that or believe it, just be open to what your dreams are telling you, because I'm telling you, I have been getting some crazy, crazy guidance lately. So before I round out this conversation, because my throat is getting very tired and we're only 36 minutes into this podcast, so that's pretty crazy. I just want to end with a little lesson or activity for you. So because I started this episode talking about how wise and strong Mother Earth is, and that she has endured every single phase and stage every epoch. Like, she can handle it. It's us that we need to be more worried about. I want you to practice giving over your fears, your stressors, your limiting beliefs, your negative memories to Mother Earth. I've often been taught this meditation practice that's really, really healing, in which you can either lay down or sit in a chair and imagine that there is a cord from either your body, if you're laying down, or the soles of your feet, if you're sitting in a chair, a cord from your body going directly into the core of the earth and attaching right in the middle of the earth. And when you do that, you start to feel so rooted and grounded, and really imagine that cord. Like, what does the cord look like? Is yours white and made out of string? Is it made out of metal? What is your particular cord? And then start to send all of that negative energy down that cord into the earth's core. Because again, she can handle it. And when you send it into the earth's core, that energy can be transmuted and alchemized into something beautiful. But if it stays with you, with our more limited human knowledge and wisdom, it may not be transmuted. It might stay heavy in your body. And so the next time you are having a bad day, or there's even a decision you're struggling with, whatever it may be, I want you to take 30 seconds to imagine that cord. So get yourself planted and rooted on the ground again, and then send anything that's not serving you through that cord directly into Mother Earth's core. So there you go. There's your practice. There have been a few that I've mentioned today. I mentioned the 5 senses practice if you're feeling anxious, and now the cord practice, all these ways that you can communicate with trees and nature and animals. On that note, I also recommend that you try this with your pets. So you can sit down with them and just try to communicate with them, see what they're telling you. And once you start tuning into that frequency, that dimension of energy, it gets easier and easier. Oh, and last thing, as I also mentioned, focus on your dreams. If you're receiving messages, you're receiving them for a reason. So that is my little message for today. I hope that Chill Devin was still okay. And I feel like, in a way, Chill Devin was perfect for this episode, talking about the grounded nature of trees and Mother Earth. So it's all meant to be. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, there are 2 things you can do that I would really, really appreciate. You can send it to a family member or friend, maybe your tree hugging friend or someone that is interested in communicating with trees, animals, etc. When you share it with others, it really helps to spread these amazing messages that I'm trying to share on the podcast. And the second is that you can rate and review the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, whether it's Spotify, the podcast app, etc. And also, if you are more of a visual person, please go follow me on YouTube at Devin Rochelle Hine. Not only do I have the podcast up, but very shortly, I hope to have some really awesome breathwork tutorials, astrology classes, and more. So this is only the beginning, my friends. And if you're tuning in, as always, thank you for being here. I know there are 1,000,001 options to choose from these days, so I appreciate it more than you know. I see you, I adore you, I believe in you, and until next week, goodbye for now, my friends.